Hello and welcome to the Zmann Show where... Speaker, play Another Winter by Anamanaguchi.
Another Winter by Anamanaguchi, starting now.
I can't get this freaking song out of my head!
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's a graphic novel, a movie, a board game, an expensive collectible figurine, a t-shirt, and of course, a video game. This multimedia phenomenon was created 15 years ago when noted Canadian Brian Lee O'Malley penned a fantastic graphic novel starring the titular Scott Pilgrim as he goes about his life while also trying to date Ramona Flowers by defeating her 7 evil exes. It was weird, it was funny, it made a bunch of pop culture references, it had everything you could ever want from a comic. The story was a big cult success spanning 6 novels, and even spawned its most well-known incarnation, an Edgar Wright-directed movie starring Michael Cera, Captain America, a Superman, Captain Marvel, Huntress. Do you guys think we're getting too many superhero films nowadays?
Now my experience with Scott Pilgrim is a rather interesting one, because the first piece of media that I experienced wasn't the excellent books by Brian Lee O'Malley, nor was it the stylish movie by Edgar Wright. Instead, I first met Scott and Ramona through the lens of a movie tie-in video game by Ubisoft Montreal.
Oh, movie tie-in games. They don't happen nearly as often recently, but back in the 2000s, almost every movie needed to have some sort of video game tie-in to it. So Universal looked at their weird little project and said, hey, we should do a video game tie-in for our movie. And Ubisoft was like, we'll do it. For money. And Universal was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Millions of dollars changed hands, and thus Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, was released in 2010 on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade. And thanks to that licensing deal, the game had a super long shelf life of less than 5 years. That's right, it was delisted without warning in December 2014, and there's currently no way to purchase the game. Luckily, in September of 2012, I logged into the PlayStation Network with my PlayStation Plus account and went, oh look, Double Dragon Neon is free this month! Oh, and this other game too. And so thousands of gamers were able to add this game to their digital libraries before it was unceremoniously removed forever.
So now the game is attached to my PlayStation account and I can download it whenever I want. As long as we don't shut down the PlayStation 3 storefront like we did with the Wii Shop channel. All digital future, baby!
So for those of you that don't know the story of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, it's about 23-year-old Scott Pilgrim from the far-off land of Canada. Over the course of the first book, Scott meets a mysterious girl named Ramona Flowers at a party and immediately falls for her. Except in order to be with her, he has to defeat her 7 evil exes in combat. And for this game, there's not a ton more that you need to know. This is a really simple game in terms of story, opting for wordless in-game cutscenes and context clues to tell the plot. But that makes it kind of cool to see how true it can stay to the world of Scott Pilgrim, while also being a short, simple beat-em-up. There are 5 characters to choose from, 7 if you get both DLCs. Each character plays differently enough from each other that it is fun to play as everyone. There's Scott, who's basically the Mario of the group. Really basic to play with good combos. Nega Scott, who can be unlocked by beating the game with all 4 main characters. Ramona, she's got a hammer, and her special button heals the group, which is cool. Kim, who doesn't really care, which is cool. And Steven Stills, he's the talent. All of this is chosen from the character select screen, which totally isn't a reference to anything. I'm just gonna pick Scott for my first run because he's the main character, and we instantly get transported to the world map, and from there we can choose our first level.
Oh yeah. That's the good stuff.
Okay, let's get this out of the way early. I love the soundtrack in this game. It was composed by the band Anamanaguchi, a chiptune pop rock band that I never would have heard of if it weren't for this game. And they kill it with this soundtrack. Each of the level themes hit many of the right notes, being fun, upbeat, and easy to listen to, while also changing styles to match the level themes that it's in or the fight that's coming up. Each boss fight also gets its own theme, which is a bit more hit or miss. But my favorite track, and the one that basically forced me to replay this game, was Another Winter, the track from the first level of the game. I don't even know why this song gets so stuck in my head, but it does. Like, once a week I catch myself humming this track. It got so bad that I needed to re-download and play this game onto my PS3, which luckily I was able to do. The first level of the game is an excellent introduction for what to expect from the rest of the game. Mechanically, Scott Pilgrim functions similarly to other beat-em-ups, taking obvious inspiration from the NES game River City Ransom. In the game, you have two basic types of attacks, weak and strong, each of which can be comboed with each other. You can also use your weak attack button to grab items and downed enemies in the environment, and then use your strong attack button to throw said item, which is a great way to make sure that single enemies stay stun locked and never get up, but also leads to some of the funniest friendly fire damage. On top of that, you have an assist button that calls in Scott's ex-girlfriend Knives Chow for some sort of effect. For characters like Steven Stills, Knives will do a straightforward attack on the enemy, while for Kim or Ramona, she'll grant health as well as another perk. And if you're good enough, you can find Knives' father out in the overworld and unlock him as an assist. I wasn't good enough. But the most important button, especially early in the game, is your block button, because Jesus Christ, these enemies hit hard! This game is pretty challenging early on, even on the easiest difficulty, because the game throws a decent chunk of enemies at you, and some of them hit for 5 times more damage than you do at the earlier levels. So, how do you make up the difference? Well, you can level up your character, or you can buy food and other paraphernalia from the shops in the game. Leveling up gets you new combos, some of which can be very helpful in dealing with both singular and groups of enemies, while shops sell food, drink, and other random items that grant you upgrades to your basic stats. About halfway through the first level, you come across the first of these shops. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Most shops sell basic food and drink items that give out minimal health and stat upgrades, while the best upgrades are available at Scott's super cool gay roommate Wallace Wells' secret shop, and from the movie rental place where Scott has built up a, chunk of late fees. Both of these options are expensive, which means that you need lots of money, which you get from defeating enemies and just playing the game well. Juggling enemies, hitting enemies with throwable items, and using snowballs in the snowball fight section all can earn you extra money, but usually only 5 Canadian cents at a time. So you go through snowy Toronto, beating up both humans and animals alike.
Why you kick my dog?
Hey, look, it's the mushroom from Mario, and the Pac-Man ghosts. Oh, and the Ubisoft symbol. And continue? I mean, yeah, it's a good YouTube channel, but it's an odd inclusion for a 2010 video game. Eventually, you make it to a mysterious door leading to the subspace highway, where you can get more money, but also acts as a tutorial on shortcuts in the game. Basically, in later levels, you can run into similar hidden doors that have stars on them that will give you shortcuts through the levels by using the subspace. This particular door leads you to Club Rocket, where Crash and the boys just finished playing their show, killing everybody, when suddenly Ramona's first Evil Ex attacks, beginning the first boss fight of the game. He's not too difficult. He is the first enemy in the game that has unblockable attacks, and can also summon hipster demon chicks that can be rather annoying if you don't deal with them quickly. But soon enough, he's defeated and explodes into $2.10 worth of coins.
It's not even enough for the bus home.
Scott and Ramona make out on a swing set while Kim and Steven Stills watch in the background. It's a little awkward. Level 2 versus Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, Lucas Lee. In Universe, Lucas Lee is a Hollywood star, so of course the entire stage is going to be based on movie references, and be located on a movie set featuring stuntmen, mascots, photographers, and a delicious food truck. Wait. Hold on. Oh geez, I got distracted again. This game has some boob physics. Like, all the girls. Every single one. Yes, even your playable character. It's weird, but otherwise the game's design is well done and true to the original character designs from Brian Lee O'Malley. This is likely because the person responsible for the sprite design in this game, Paul Robertson, who you may know from his work on Gravity Falls, worked closely with Brian to recreate the look of the graphic novel, while also giving the look of a 16-bit game in its animations. And it works well. The characters pop from the background scenery, which in itself is extremely detailed. If you pay attention, you'll see tons of hidden secrets, and background characters from the books pop up all over the place. Oh look, it's Jason Kim! He is a car. Level 2 is once again a fun level, if not a little annoying because of these photographers that can stun you with their cameras. They don't even hurt you, they just stun you. You chase Lucas Lee throughout the entire set, spanning several movie references, as he puts several obstacles in your way to stop you. This totally isn't a reference to anything, by the way. Eventually, Lucas Lee stops for a smoke break long enough for you to fight him, and holy crap, this fight! Do you remember when I mentioned this game is kinda hard at the beginning because certain enemies hit like a truck? Well, Lucas Lee hits like a roided out helicarrier, And he fights dirty too. First he brings out some lackeys to fight you with their skateboards that hit hard, so it's already not a one-on-one fight. But then if you cause them to drop the skateboards, Lucas picks one up and starts riding it around, making him invincible, until eventually he stops long enough to hit you for a 3-hit combo that does almost half of your health. Basically, he's a giant roadblock, so it's time to grind out some money and levels. But at this point I played through a level and a half and don't even have enough money to afford any of the big stat boosters at Wallace's secret shop.
Well, you know how we do it here on the Z-Man Show? We cheat.
Do you remember the Konami code? Well, Ubisoft sure does, and they implemented it into this game. So what does it do? Well, if you input up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, or circle X in the PS3 version, your character dies, leaving behind $50 in the process. Fair trade-off in my opinion. Using this code, it's pretty easy to afford anything at Wallace's shop, which give incredible stat gains even at lower levels. And they totally aren't references to any video game properties. Not at all. Not even a little bit. But if you're really up for it, you can get enough money to pay off Scott's late fees at the no account video store, because once you do, you have access to a slew of massive stat upgrades for the mere cost of $4.95 a pop, including one that's just a 1-up for your character. Basically, once you've unlocked no account video, killing yourself has a 10-to-1 return on investment. Now for the purposes of not getting too powerful, I didn't max out my stats, but I did buff enough to make the Lucas Lee fight a piece of cake. Once defeated, he skateboards down like 8 steps and dies, leaving behind way more money than that Matthew Patel fella. Cheap bastard. Scott and Ramona make out atop a mound of bodies while Kim is off to the side looking pissed. It's still awkward. Level 3. It's time to fight Superman. I mean, Captain Marvel's boyfriend. I mean, Todd Ingram. He's vegan, which means he's better than you. And he has psychic powers. Don't ask me how that works, because Todd doesn't even know for sure.
If you knew the science, maybe I'd listen to what you say.
This level's a little insane, because the game just starts to throw hordes of enemies at you all at once. But with the new stat increases, it's not that difficult, and Todd isn't that much harder. After beating up his girlfriend and his mistress, he chases you through several doors, and the real boss fight begins with a duel. Definitely not a reference to anything. The fight gets moved outside forcefully, and Todd shows off all of his vegan powers that include Jedi Force Chokes, Static Shock Electricity, and turning into a vegetable Akira monster. But it's not that terribly difficult compared to Lucas Lee.
Nothing is harder than Lucas Lee.
Stage 4 versus Roxy the Ninja. Look, I said exes, not ex-boyfriends. And it's set on a train, which is kind of boring compared to the other levels.
You know what? I stand corrected. That was pretty cool.
This level can be described as Ninjas the Level. It's nothing special, it just has way more ninjas than the other levels. And at one point, you go through a Japanese-style Benihana restaurant with floors that just aren't up to code.
Why are all these people on fire? Somebody shut this restaurant down!
This all leads to Ramona's backyard for a showdown with Roxy. Gender, female. It was an important distinction. Roxy has sort of a detachable whip sword that totally isn't a reference to anything, and uses all of her ninja skills like using shadow clones literally once and walking around slowly the rest of the time. This boss fight is way too easy. Level 5, the Japanese twins that Ramona dated at the same time. Yeah, Ramona's love life is getting a little weird here. Not a ton new with this one. You're at a party, you fight a robot, you fight a bigger robot. The bigger robot's annoying to beat because the depth perception in this game sucks! After beating the giant robot, you get blasted off to the Dragon's Den section, which is just a terrible level, but we'll come back to that. This is where we fight the twins. It's kinda cute how the music sounds really distant throughout this entire level, and we find out it's because the twins were playing the level song for us. They're so thoughtful. Still gotta kick the shit out of them though. There's even a trophy for beating them simultaneously, which I totally did. Level 6 doesn't actually feature an evil ex, but instead Nega Scott. He's evil, but not really. This level's kinda weird too. It's a fantasy setting that I think is supposed to be a reference to one of the dreams Scott has in the books, but there's also owls and wolverines and freaking zombies. Eventually we catch up to Nega Scott. And as you'd expect, it's a fight with your own avatar, similar to something that you'd see at the end of Adventure of Link, where he has all of the same moves.
Oh my god, where'd he get a fireball?
And finally, we've reached level 7, the leader of the League of Evil Exes, Gideon Graves, and his really long elevator sequence. It's boring, it's repetitive, and extremely anticlimactic, leading to easily the worst level in the game. Which sucks when this is it. This is the lead up to the big bad. I mean, give me something. Eventually the elevator ride ends. Hey look, a Triforce! And Scott lands in the Chaos Theater, where Gideon is sitting menacingly in the background. Fun fact, Scott Pilgrim creator Brian Lee O'Malley has said in the past that the character who plays Gideon in the movie, Jason Schwartzman, was at least part of the inspiration for the character of Gideon. Meanwhile, back at the fight, when did he get so jacked? He's throwing meteors down at the field! He's turning into a one-winged angel! This totally isn't a reference to anything! Using the power of souped-up stats, Scott manages to defeat Super Gideon and gets sucked into his body. It's here that Scott obtains the power of love and fights Gideon's second form, which totally isn't a reference to anything. And with the power of love's laser beam, Scott is able to defeat FF6 Gideon, causing him to retreat deeper into the Chaos Theater. And we finally get a final level that's actually worth the build-up. It's full of robots and test tubes and cloning vats that show that Gideon is a truly terrible person. I mean, just look at that. Shoutouts to this one robot that sells microwave chicken out of the back of the Chaos Theater though. Finally we get to Gideon's third phase, which is a straightforward fight with Gideon, who's pretty fast, hits hard, and is a fun final boss fight. Scott wins, revealing that the entire boss arena was just a simulation, not a reference to anything, and that the real Gideon is standing right in front of him, pleading for his life. Nah. The Chaos Theater explodes and Scott wins the day. And so, Scott was saddened by Ramona's departure.
Wait, what?
But only for a little while. Soon he was dating Knives, Kim, and Envy all at once. He was the happiest guy in the world. Or was he?
Wow, I forgot that this game has different endings depending on the character that you choose. And that the titular character doesn't even have the canon ending. In fact, Scott's ending kinda sucked. So let's try for a different ending. With friends.
We're out of pizza.
Of course, I can't talk about this game without talking about the co-op aspect. This was the first way that I experienced this game with my brother all those years ago. Now, I do have to criticize the co-op multiplayer aspect of this game a little bit here, because for some reason, it's not drop in, drop out. If you start single player and someone wants to play with you, you have to go back to the title screen to get them in. The same goes if you want to let someone stop playing. Luckily, progress carries over, but it's still an odd decision considering games like New Super Mario Bros. Wii and the LEGO games had pretty much standardized the feature. They later added drop in, drop out as part of the Knives Chow DLC, but, you know, delisted. Now, if you thought playing with one player was a little crazy, playing with 4 people simultaneously is exceedingly chaotic. The game doesn't adjust much in level design between 1 player and 4 players, but what does change is the craziness that comes with 4 player characters accidentally hurting each other in every which way. There is just a constant barrage of items being thrown and bouncing off of one of your friends instead of the enemy. It's also very easy to lose yourself in all of the chaos, but as a result you do get quite a few laughs. I'll never forget my friend Sarah playing as Kim, getting bored in our robot friend's shop. You know, the guy that's selling beef jerky out of the back of the Chaos Theater for no reason. Shoutouts to that guy though. I'll never forget Sarah getting bored and throwing a shock stick against the wall, hurting herself. So Watson, playing Steven Stills, the talent, stole the stick to force her to stop, only to then accidentally throw the stick from off screen, hitting himself, knocking himself back into the shop, which then glitched him out, making sure that he couldn't leave. The only solution was then to knock him out with the same stick, pick him up, and walk him out of the shop, otherwise we would have been stuck in there forever. You had to be there, man. We were laughing like crazy. But in spite of all the fun, playing with 4 players really showed the seams of the game. First off, with 4 players, this game is pitifully easy. I mean, I'm sure it helps that player stats from previous playthroughs carry over, so that my friend Leo, who was playing as Scott, was already level 20 and had all of the max stats from the single player playthrough. But beyond that, the game also didn't add a ton more enemies, giving a few more guys to fight, but nothing really noticeable. Like, they might add 2 enemies where there was only 1 before. It was also way easier to abuse the money cheat code, because you can revive your friends after death. So now we can get $50 without even having to sacrifice a life. Pretty much all the difficulty in the game came from us hitting each other with thrown objects, which at a high strength stat like Scott had in the game, hits for way more damage than any punch thrown by an enemy. But the other big difficulty we had came in level 5. You remember level 5, right? Japanese twins, giant robot fight, literally the worst section of the game. Let's finally rip on that section, shall we? Hey game designers, don't put platforming sections in your side-scrolling beat-em-up games. And this wasn't just me sucking at video games again. Every one of us playing struggled through this section. We lost so much health and several lives because the movement scheme of a beat-em-up is not meant for platforming the way it's laid out in this section. Whether you misjudge the depth in relation to the platform or accidentally run, which is very easy to do. I actually made my friend stop reviving me because when you lose all your lives, you turn into a ghost that can float over all the platforming sections. While another friend got lucky and had a fire obstacle fling her to the other side. And man, the glitches we kept running into. There were several times where one person was unable to enter a door for no good reason, meaning that no one could enter the shop. Or there would be invisible enemies that no one could see but just kept hitting us. That was weird. Or again, level 5. After defeating the first robot, you're supposed to go through a door that opens at the end. But nobody could go through. We all tried. I had to reset the game, which, as it turns out, resets everybody but player 1's progress. So we had to do the infinite money cheat again in order to get everyone back up to level. Though that did give me the opportunity to use the money into animals cheat code. It's so cute! In the end, we beat Gideon again. It was really easy with 4 level 20 characters. And Ramona got her ending, which is the true canon ending, with Ramona and Scott being together and looking forward to a bright future.
So that was Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. A movie tie-in that, in my opinion, is well worth your time.
It's well made, and nothing is completely broken, but nothing necessarily stands out either outside of the tie-in to a brand that I love. And this is references the game, in that there are so many references to a ridiculous number of properties that it's impossible for me to list them all. I mean, this is the fandom page for just references in the game, and some of this stuff is insane. Like Steven Stills' ending references the band playing in front of a crowd of 65,536 people, which is the highest numerical value that a 16-bit integer can hold. It's obvious that this game was made with a ton of love for Scott Pilgrim and for video games as a whole, and it's incredibly sad that there's no way to legally enjoy it if you don't already have the game. I mean, there's no way for me to legally enjoy the Wallace Wells or Knives Chow DLC characters, which is unfortunate because I think Knives would have been my favorite character to play as. Her dash attack is absolutely adorable, and her assist involves her mom coming and scolding the enemies into running away. That's awesome! And it's all because of a rights deadlock between Universal and Ubisoft that will likely never get resolved, leaving this game in digital-only purgatory.
But it is good that I got to experience this game while I could, both with my family and with my friends. Because in the end, that's what our video game journeys are really about. The friends that we made along the way. Now get the fuck out of my apartment.